Join me, Neelam, on Mother's Planet every Friday at 10 o'clock on air at 105.1 FM or via our Inspire FM Facebook page. I'll be sharing tips and discussions with my guests on topics from kids, what to cook, health, well-being, and lots more for all you special mums. That's Mother's Planet every Friday from 10 a.m. only at Inspire FM 105.1 FM.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 27th of June, 2025. I'm your host, Abdul Akbar, and joining me in the studio is Zafar Saab as well. Assalamu alaikum,
Saab.
How are you doing this evening?
Alhamdulillah, yourself?
Alhamdulillah, very well. Thank you so much for asking. Getting ready for the very warm weekend, but more on that a little bit later on. Of course, we are beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, Peterborough, and the Midlands through our partner stations across the nation, including Link FM and Salam Radio. So welcome to all of you who are tuned in live up and down the UK. This is Friday Night Live, and I'm your host, Abdul Akbar. Tonight, we dive into two topics gripping headlines across the Muslim world and indeed the entire globe. First, we're asking the question, is Donald Trump a peacemaker or a master manipulator? I know where I stand on that one, but with recent developments in the Middle East, including a temporary ceasefire between Iran and Israel, there's talk of him positioning himself for a political comeback, possibly even a Nobel Peace Prize, especially if you ask the Pakistanis who nominated him, right? That's
yeah, they nominated him and on the next day they've actually condemned him. Yeah, so
absolute joke, but we're going to talk about that in a second. But the question is, listeners, whose interests are really being served, and what does this mean for the Muslim world? That's coming up in a moment, and in about half an hour's time we're going to be tackling a heated debate, and we're going to be inviting your calls on this one, which is terrorists or freedom fighters. The UK government has officially banned Palestine action under terror laws, calling their tactics extreme. But does this decision silence legitimate dissent against Israeli arms manufacturing on British soil? And how is this shaping perceptions of activism amongst British Muslims? We're going to get into this topic and more on tonight's edition of Friday Night Live. Now, earlier this month, of course, diving straight into the first topic, reports emerged that Donald Trump has been hinting he could end the Iran-Israel conflict within 24 hours. According to a 2024 Pew Research Center survey, 65% of Americans believe the U.S. should reduce its involvement in Middle East conflicts. Meanwhile, the Middle East remains on edge. Over 40,000 Palestinians, and some are saying, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, that 40,000, 50,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the October attack started well over a year and a bit ago, while Iranian proximities continue to exert influence across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Now, a ceasefire between Iran and Israel has briefly calmed tensions, but analysts warn it could simply be a strategic pause, even at this juncture. The question tonight is Trump's diplomatic posturing truly about peace, or is it calculated to secure electoral gains, restore American influence, or even chase a Nobel Peace Prize? And how does this affect the Muslim communities, both here and abroad, who have borne the brunt of US foreign policy over the past 2 decades? Well, guess what? Joining us tonight, we've got Javed Rana on the line. He's a seasoned journalist and geopolitical analyst who's been following Iran, Israel, and US foreign policy for decades. He joins us to shed light on the motivations behind the ceasefire and the potential political chess moves at play. And also joining us right now is Mohammed Manib Hamid. He's going to be signing on in a little bit, and we're going to be asking him some questions as well about the situation. But let me start with you. First of all, Javed Saab, thank you for joining us. First of all, how are you?
I'm fine.
Appreciate you joining us. Let me go straight to my first question, which is Pakistan's former government under Imran Khan famously also pushed for Trump's Nobel Peace Prize nomination in 2020. And we have the current administration also pushing for this as well, as recently as before, they dropped the bombs, the Americans dropped the bombs on Iran. In hindsight, was that premature given Trump's policies in the wider Muslim world, and now this Iran-Israel ceasefire narrative? And also, can you just help us understand and maybe shed some light on why Pakistan is positioning Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize?
I think Pakistan's nomination of Donald Trump is more South Asia specific. It is more linked with Pakistan's brief war with India and Donald Trump's role. I think, and more than that, Pakistan's military generals who call the shots, they know very much that what Trump needs and what Trump is looking for. He wants to somehow or the other counter Obama, because Obama was given a Nobel Peace Prize, and he feels so jealous about it. And Pakistani military generals know about it. And then also, anything that interests Donald Trump, that is what Pakistani military generals have been doing for him. Basically to win him over, because at whom they've been facing a lot of tough time from the mainstream opposition party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, whose leader Imran Khan has been jailed. So I think that looks like the scenario. But at the same time, we have to understand that the Trump was not willing to intervene of what was happening between Pakistan and India, because he said, if he says something, let them handle it. I'm not going to intervene. It has been going on for last, according to his misleading claim, 1,000 to 1,500 years. So, and then Trump found that, as a matter of fact, there is a possibility of a nuclear war, and India is being beaten up in black and blue by Pakistan. And I think that is where Trump intervened. And from there onwards, Pakistani military general thought that this is the time to actually exploit the situation politically and give what Trump deeply wants, and that is to nominate him to for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay, very, very clear. Thank you for sharing that. Zafar Saab, your analysis on this, before I go back to Javed Saab for his excellent points there. What are your thoughts about what has ensued over the last couple of weeks? It has been almost like edge of your seat drama, where you just can't predict what he's going to do. One minute he's saying, yeah, we're thinking about, attacking Iran over the next 2 weeks. And then 2 days later, they've actually dropped bombs.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly smart move, to be honest, to extricate and save face for Israel, to be honest. Israel ran out of headroom. It couldn't do anything else that it had already done. It couldn't carry on. It was running out of munitions, etc. And it was getting beaten up by missiles every day, to be honest, right? So it offered an off-ramp to Israel to de-escalate. By involving the US in there, really it gave America a stake in the conflict for a brief period. And by signaling well in advance what they were going to do, by allowing pictures of tankers and B-50 or B-2 bombers, etc., to let the world know they're coming, and the back channels, according to Al Jazeera, Qatar was actually having negotiations with them, and then the response back from Iran again was well signaled. Al Jazeera reported originally that they were very upset that Iran targeted Qatar, but later on said Qatar was actually negotiating or helping negotiate the response. So I think it was well choreographed, to be honest, from both sides. Iran knew America was not going to be in it for the long run.
Yeah.
And similarly, also the Iranians knew that they could get a little bit of dignity by attacking someplace which was deserted. On the question of nominations, to be honest, I think it was really really pathetic of Pakistan to actually nominate Donald. It made Pakistan look really weak and stupid. A day before they nominated him and the day after he attacked Iran. It upset the Iranians, I would have thought, quite a lot. And it came across as being Pakistan was bootlicking, to be honest, and really a terrible move. I know what they're trying to do, and Donald Trump may want to get the nominations, but he's not stupid. He knows when people are trying to play him, really. And this was just really a pathetic move, to be honest, in my opinion.
I think he's quite happy to be played as long as there's billions and trillions of pounds or dollars involved in the transaction. Thank you for that, Zawar Saab. Amazing analysis there as well from you. Let's go back to Javed Saab. Javed Saab, from your point of view, where does this go from here? Because we've seen, for example, that currently there is a cessation of hostilities. We know that there's probably not going to be any more hostilities. And some circles, and I don't know what the situation is and what the rumors are where you are, Javed Saab, but some circles are suggesting the reason why Israel took this action pretty much without too much of the American blessing was because Iran and America were getting very close to agreeing on a nuclear deal of some shape or form, and the Israelis were not willing to tolerate this, especially with Iran getting so advanced in terms of its domestic nuclear capability, which they've been talking about bombs, nuclear threat being a proper issue for Israel for decades, right? This is not new. This is not something that's happened recently. So the question is, what triggered Israel to make the move now versus maybe in the future? And some are suggesting that, you know what, America and Iran were about to get very close in terms of a diplomatic relationship, and Israel was not willing to tolerate that. Your thoughts on that?
I think the misleading assessment by Israel was essentially that since Iran's militant wings, they've been militarily degraded like Hezbollah, and then also no longer there is a pro-Iran government in Damascus, and which means the supply line was disrupted to the Hezbollah, and Hezbollah was already, militarily degraded. So this is the high time to carry out an attack on Iran, to go for a regime change operation, and to destroy its nuclear infrastructure. I think it looks like since Donald Trump was sandwiched between a very strong Jewish lobby, which wanted him to carry out attack on the Iran's nuclear installations, and probably they also wanted him to go for some kind of a bigger operation, to go such as a regime change. I think Donald Trump, it looks like to me, probably found an in-between option where he can go for some kind of a deal making, where he informed Iranian in advance that there is going to be attack on its installations, and then Iran was managing it. Iran basically pulled out its centrifuge, and more importantly, very high enriched material, which is probably enriched up to 60%, which could be used to possibly to make nuclear bomb at initial stage. That was taken out. The fact that there has been no radioactivity in that part of the Iran also underlines that theory that it was some kind of a part of a loose understanding between USA and Iran that they are going to attack, and that was a signal to Iran, whatever they could do, they can do it. And very importantly, USA could not have afforded to destroy nuclear installations with a high enriched material, which means it could have contaminated deep waters, and that means there would have been no drinking water for Qatar at least, and other Arab states, neighboring Arab states. So I think this is a part of a bigger understanding, but I don't foresee any immediate confrontation between two countries, given the fact that Israel faced a lot of tough time, and Israel's so-called hegemony has been shattered. It will take years for apartheid Israel to recover from that kind of a awe and shock that Iran retaliated.
Yeah, really powerful points there. Thank you, Javed Saab. Stay there with us because I want to move on to Pakistan in a moment and focus on some Pakistani politics whilst I've got you gentlemen on the line. But let me go to Muhammad Munib Hamid. So joining us, listeners and viewers, is as well as Mohammed Manib Hamid, an experienced broadcast journalist and geopolitical analyst whose work has explored conflicts on Gaza to the Gulf. He's here to help us navigate Trump's motives and their regional implications as well. Assalamu alaikum, Manib Saab, how are you?
Walaikum salam. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. You're live on the radio and online as well. So, Manib Saab, we're talking about the situation between Iran and Israel, and also the American involvement here. And of course, potentially the British involvement, where it did seem that Keir Starmer and his government were also getting ready for potential deployment if things were to escalate. As Zafar Saab mentioned, it seems as though the Iranian response was choreographed. The Americans were given the heads up before Iran actually attacked its bases in Qatar, just outside Doha. And it seems as though, ironically and strangely, I found it very strange that, Trump was thanking the Iranians for giving them notice. I just found that really hilarious. And again, it just underlines the fact that we don't know what we can expect from this very unorthodox American president. And some are even arguing in the Muslim world that this Trump, whilst he may be wild and have some crazy ideas and may not be completely fair when it comes to the Palestinian situation, is actually a breath of fresh air. What's your analysis on the handling of the Iranian-Israel conflict? And do you feel as though Trump really does not want to create any wars? His indications are he doesn't want to do that. And do you feel there's going to be better relations with Iran in the weeks and months ahead between Iran and the West?
Thank you so much. It's a very put question, and I'm sure the audience and you all, and also Javed Bhai remembers just some months back when Iran and Israel had a conflict, and they exchanged missiles, and Iran sent like a barrage of missiles, ballistic missiles, and everything. And the PR game is on spot. The public game, the media game is on spot. We're going to destroy Iraq. We're going to destroy Israel. We're going to teach them a lesson this time. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then, I was just sitting at home and analyzing that. Just for example, like Pakistan and India were recently at war, right? And Pakistan and India both exchanged missiles, gunfire, and so much stuff. And there was some, material loss to both ends. Let's say with that for the moment. So now, I couldn't digest this thing that Iran has fired more than 200 ballistic missiles, and they were hit on empty buildings, and not a single Israeli civilian or an armed official was killed in those attacks. And then these attacks came in again, while the United States with Israel kill your president, they kill General Soleimani, they murder your top tier leadership, scientists, generals, politicians, and everything. And what's the response of Iran? Oh, we're going to inform you before we shoot you. So this seems to be a bit hypocritical, and the response of Iran seems more of a PR game. They're trying to win the confidence of the Muslims. They're trying to let the world know that yes, me and Iran, me and Israel, we're really big enemies, and
I think they're really good points there, Manib Saab. And also, maybe they're trying to win confidence of their own people as well. It could be argued because there is a much younger Iranian cohort in that country that, frankly, is not looking towards the East and their so-called Islamic values, but they're looking towards the West, so-called Western values.
That is true. That is true.
Could that be part of it?
That is true. That is true. That is true. Because I can compare the current Iranian regime, with exactly what Modi has been doing, and this is why he's there for the third term. He has been using war, and he has been using his enemies to win the population, to win the masses on the ground. And when it comes to performance, it's nil. It's absolutely zero. There is nothing constructive development or anything that you can win. And strangely, everyone around the world is talking about a regime change in Iran. US wants a regime change, Israel wants a regime change. I personally, think the opposite. I think this regime best suits Israel and the US interests in the specific region, right? Now, Iran says we're fighting with Israel because we want to stand for the Muslim Ummah. We want to stand for the Palestinians. And when Israel and the US broker, when you have a brokered agreement for a ceasefire, there's no mention of Palestinians, right? So Israel creates Hamas. Iran supports Hamas against Israel, and who's dying? Dying, innocent Palestinians.
Yeah,
So
really powerful points there. Thank you for sharing that, Manip Saab. Really appreciate your time as well on the program and joining us as you have been. Thank you so much for that. Let me just go to Javed Saab, because Javed Saab, I want to just change tack slightly and go on to maybe more Pakistani geopolitics as well, and what's happening in Pakistan right now. There's lots happening in Pakistan. I don't know where to begin. Let me go to Zafar Saab. Zafar Saab, your thoughts on, whilst we got these wonderful journalists on the line and to get their reactions, your thoughts on what's happening in Pakistan right now?
Specifically, not to do with Iran-Iraq conflict.
Yeah, just generally politically.
Yeah. The headlines today is that the PTI party has been basically there's a court case going whether they should have been given the additional MPs. In Pakistan, there's if you get elected, you get a number of seats, right? You get some additional seats, right, which are nominated for minorities and women, etc. And there was some sleight of hand that was done by the authorities to take those away from PTI, and they went through the courts for the last 2 years. It was decided one way, and then the other way, and then the other way, and now they finally decided. The Supreme Court has decided that they're not going to be eligible, even though they had quite a significant number of MPs elected. They're not going to be eligible for the additional quota of women and non-Muslim sort of.
So I trust you to bring up the PTI headlines.
I have to. Yeah, it has to come across. And to be honest, it's a nail in a coffin, right, for the Pakistani judiciary.
I hear you.
Well, maybe some of the commentators might comment on that, but before they get beaten up by the security services, to be honest.
But, whichever side you're on, it is a grave injustice what's going on, especially with those people in the PTI. But let me go on to Javed Saab on that. Javed Saab, generally speaking, what is the sentiment amongst Pakistanis about what is happening with the PTI officials? Has this died down now, or is this very much an active cause for concern amongst ordinary Pakistanis?
I think that is a bigger lingering concern. A political party which had won the general election, the 2/3 majority vote, it was shrunk in a very systematic manner. In a very systematic manner, the bogus election results were, prepared. The PTI's winning candidates, his name was replaced with the other candidates, just to make it sure, just to pave the path for a political party which had hardly won 20 seats out of 262 directly contested seats. And then literally at gunpoint, many members of the family members of the MPs, opposition MPs, were kidnapped by the secret intelligence agencies, and they were forced basically to vote in favor of previous 26 constitutional amendment. And that means basically to bring more loyalist judges who are more pro to the military generals, who listen more to the military generals. And that is where they have managed everything. Now, what we have seen today, just a couple of hours ago, that is basically a stamping of what the government, handpicked government of the military, and the military general wanted. Now, the fear in Pakistan is that there is going to be another constitutional amendment, 27th constitutional amendment, the very crux of which could possibly be the military generals can be allowed to become the president of Pakistan. That is an apprehension, that is unconfirmed reports, something we cannot conclude at this particular point of time. Wow. And then there will be lot many other constitutional amendments. But the bigger question here is that this very parliament does not have the legitimacy to make any legislation or go for some kind of constitutional amendment, because clear facts are that these were all based on the bogus election results.
Yeah, there you go. Very interesting. Listen, gentlemen, I want to appreciate both of your times tonight on Friday Night Live. We've run out of time, unfortunately, but Javed Rana Saab and also Munib Hamid Saab, we need to get you back on the program. What an amazing insights you've offered. And hopefully, Munib Bhai, we can also make sure we get your camera on next time so we can see you as well.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Take care of yourselves, gents. Assalamu alaikum. All right, listeners, this is Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab. Of course, we're beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding us tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, Peterborough, and the Midlands, to our partner stations across the nation. We're about to take a short break, but stay with us. Hopefully, I can see our countdown in a moment, but stay with us, because coming up after the break, we're talking about the banning of the group Palestine Action. They did, according to many, something that others have done, which is civil disobedience, which is demonstrating, which is damaging government assets, not in a hostile way, but in a peaceful way. Nonetheless, they have now been banned. They've been called a terror organization. We're going to be talking about that and saying, is that fair? Coming up after these messages. Don't go away. Assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Your number one radio station. Inspire FM. www.inspirefm.org.
Have you heard? Have you heard the exciting news?
What exciting news is that?
To celebrate their 60th anniversary, Ambala Sweets are launching their Dubai Chocolate Barfi from Saturday, 24th of May.
So we can visit the Ambala Sweet store at 211 Dunstable Road in Luton and now buy Dubai Chocolate Barfi.
Yes, it'll be available from Saturday, 24th of May, and so much more. That's fantastic.
Don't miss out. Dubai Chocolate Barfi and many more tasty sweet treats at Ambala, Dunstable Road in Luton, and all Ambala stores.
The perfect venue for your perfect day has to be the Barn Tea Green at Stony Lane, where natural beauty blends with rustic charm. With the stunning barn conversion, breathtaking garden room, private bridal suite, and landscape gardens set within the picturesque Hertfordshire countryside, this unique and charming venue's ideal for intimate nikahs, mendis, weddings, other celebrations, or business events for up to 200 guests with ample parking. For details, call 01582 800 222. Visit thebarnteagreen.co.uk or check out our Instagram at thebarnteagreen.
Are you looking for a spouse or know someone who is? Look no further than Rishta Networking, supported by Inspire FM. Rishta Networking is a non-profit initiative with the sole aim of helping fellow Muslims enter into successful and thriving marriages. Join us at our next Muslim marriage event, taking place on Friday, 18th July at Crescent Hall. This event is a fantastic opportunity to meet potential matches in a comfortable and welcoming environment, and while enjoying a 3-course meal. Due to popular demand, candidates will now be able to attend with their mothers. Spaces are limited, so register today at rishta-networking.co.uk.
Had an accident, a bump, trip or fall? Then you need Claims Specialists, your first choice for accident claims. The specialist claims company on Dunstable Road in Luton. With excellent access to expert solicitors and on a no-win, no-fee basis, Claims Specialists use their 30 years experience to help get you the best compensation possible. For injuries at work, taxi, PCO and private hire incidents, road accidents and vehicle damage, medical negligence, plus rented housing disrepair. In short, when you need to make any claim, click on claimspecialists.co.uk or call 01582 733 222.
For specialist immigration services, the people to talk to settle a family member in the UK, M&K Solicitors. For all your legal solutions for family, personal injury, clinical negligence, civil and property law, M&K Solicitors. Internationally recognised M&K Solicitors for local legal services you can rely on. Call 01582 732 503 or click on mnksolicitors.com. Your first consultation is free.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम किरण है। कोट कश्मीर ऑर्फन्स रिलीफ ट्रस्ट मेरा एक खूबसूरत घर है जहां मेरे साथ सैकड़ों यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की तालीम व तरबियत और पुरसुकून माहौल में परवरिश हो रही है और ये सब कुछ आपके तावन से मुमकिन है। अल्लाह से दुआ है कि अल्लाह करीम आपको सदा सलामत रखे और उम्मीद है कि आप इसी तरह अपना प्यार, मोहब्बत और तावन जारी रखेंगे। कोट UK ऑफिस 0300123774 court.org.uk।
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to part 2 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 27th of June, 2025. I'm your host, Abdul Akbar, joined in studio here with Zafar Saab as well. And we're beaming out to the good people, Luton and surrounding areas tonight, and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, Peterborough, and the Midlands through our partner stations across the nation. So welcome to all of you tuned in and also watching live on Facebook and YouTube. We've just been talking about the Trump posturing as a result of the recent crisis between Israel and Iran. And now we're about to change gears more domestically to ask the question whether it was right for Keir Starmer's government to ban Palestine action in light of the recent actions and non-violent protests they took place in. Now, Zabrasa, before we go to our guest who's on the line, it does seem like a very harsh reaction to what seems like quite a trivial situation. Yes, okay, fair enough. They did infiltrate RAF Bryce Norton, right? Which is an RAF airbase housing, multiple government and country assets and aircraft like, fighter jets that could be used in action against any country, including to support Israel whilst it's been bombing Palestinians. The British government say that hasn't been the case. The government is not actively involved in any campaigns against the Palestinians in terms of providing military assets of that kind. But the Palestinian campaigners will say, do you know what? We're going in there to make a point. Just like other charities like Fathers for Justice and environmental charities that have made peaceful protests. What's your analysis of what's going on before we go to our guest?
Yeah, to be honest, right, I think the first thing that government ought to be worried about is the fact that numerous times people have been able to get into these air bases, right? It just shows that their security is lacking and they need to do something about security, first of all.
Well, there's a will, there's a way, I guess, but yeah.
Well, these are friendly people, right? These are friendly people who just wanted to put paint on the aeroplanes. They could have destroyed them, to be honest.
It's true.
If need be.
Or they could have put something else on them.
To put something else on them.
That's
right.
true.
So that's one thing. The other thing is, I'm not too sure about direct action, to be honest. Direct action raises eyebrows, but it doesn't generate sympathy. What you need is for a popular cause, you need hearts and minds, basically. So I'm not sure how effective it is. However, having said that, these people are well-meaning, right? And they have been putting their own lives at risk and their livelihoods at risk, right, to protest against an injustice that's happening thousands of miles away. And the fact that the MPs are not listening makes them want to do things to make them hear, make them listen, because of the torturous things that are happening. Yeah. Having said that, to actually charge them with terrorism, right? I know. It just means the terrorism has been abused.
You'd expect this from the Conservatives, right? Kemi Badenoch.
You expect that from the Chinese, man.
Sunak, you'd expect it from those people, the Conservatives, but you wouldn't expect it from a left-leaning, right, a centre-left.
It's not left-leaning at all anymore.
I mean, it kind of, centre, wherever you want to put them, they're definitely more left than conservatives, right?
It's a captured Labour Party.
All right.
With people who are very extreme, basically running it.
Well, exactly, and that's what some people are arguing, and it is disappointing, according to many people out there that are watching Keir Starmer's government take this action against a peaceful group that is trying to raise awareness for the plight of the Palestinian people. But listen, somebody who knows about the situation and has a lot more to say on this comment and this topic than we do is our next guest, who is Professor Gamal Hawash. Of course, our guest for this crucial discussion is Professor Gamal Hawash, a respected writer and analyst who has long been an authoritative voice on Palestinian rights, British foreign policy, and the intersection of activism and counter-terror laws. Professor Gamal, assalamu alaikum. Thanks for joining us again on Friday Night Live. So hopefully we can hear you, because currently I can't hear you, Professor Gamal. So hopefully we can make sure that our sound is accurately capturing the high definition airwaves around you and relaying them through the electric medium of the internet to us. So let's try one more time there. Professor Gamal, assalamu alaikum. Ooh, we can't hear you yet. So we're going to try and fix that issue with you behind the scenes, because I don't want to miss Professor Gamal there. Because Zafar, it is strange, isn't it, that a Labour government, and you might not think it is strange because of the way they've been posturing, but it is quite unprecedented for a group that is pro-Palestinian that has taken this action to be banned in this very drastic way. And to be called terrorists.
Absolutely,
they're not terrorists.
They're
not terrorists.
There's a few people who have already been arrested, and one of the mothers of youngster basically arrested said that she didn't know for a good few weeks basically that her daughter was actually arrested. So not only have been arrested, right, they've been arrested under dubious sort of circumstances and disappeared.
Yeah.
You expect that kind of thing from Pakistan and China and things like that, and they were disappeared. And only then, after several weeks, right, they found out that she was actually arrested for direct action.
Yeah. So
applying the terrorism law to these kind of protests seems highly overreaching, I guess, basically.
Yeah.
To the extreme. And then to actually treat these people like terrorists, I think is just an extreme. These people care deeply about the 56,000 Muslims, most of them children, have been murdered, basically. And they're trying to raise their voices the best they can. They're putting their livelihoods at stake.
Yeah, no sympathy, right? If you think about it, it's just clear black and white aggression from the British government. In light of
whether
this
it's the
situation.
government or the establishment, it might be the security establishment. You don't know.
It could be. But here's the thing: if you look at the reaction the government has had, it's very far right. One could argue, because you would expect a government that is sympathetic to the situation of the Palestinians, which this government claims it is. If you look at, the Foreign Office ministers when they take questions on a weekly basis and they update the House of Commons on what's going on, there's a lot of sympathy. But the actions are very different. And there's no sympathy.
Because it is a captured government, really. It doesn't want to, it might want to act, right, but it can't act.
Yeah, hopefully we can get the strap line on for this particular segment as well, so people who are tuning in can connect to what we're talking about. But if you think about it, there is interesting things going on. What we're going to do is trying to get Professor Gamal on the phone line so that we can actually speak to him and make sure we can hear his perspectives, because he's got some really important perspectives that we want to hear about. But the other thing that's interesting, Zafar Saab, is that today 4 people were actually arrested on this topic. So just earlier today, 4 people were arrested on suspicion of a terror offense after these 2 Voyager aircraft were damaged.
I guess this is in the States, I guess, right? So you can't maybe compare. But there's news yesterday of a guy who'd actually murdered a pastor, right? And he had plans to murder 14 more pastors.
Oh boy!
And he's an extreme Zionist, basically, with basically graffiti in Hebrew all over his body.
Where's
Not
that? In the
graffiti
US?
in the US, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And none of the media, apart from I think Independent or Guardian mentioned it briefly.
Okay.
None of them actually picked it up, right? And here you have a situation, right, where people are trying to save babies who are murdered, right? And another example, right, in Moscow airport, a child was basically thrown like a doll.
I saw that video.
And basically in concussion by an evil person.
Evil.
Who happens to have come from that region as well.
It's evil, absolutely.
Right? And again, then you're trying to compare actions of those evil people, right, with people who have just been arrested protesting, right, to save lives.
There's a mismatch, isn't there? Anyway,
there's a massive mismatch.
I think we've got Professor Kamal Hawash on the line, so let's go to him right now. Assalamu alaikum, Professor. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear. And I've got to say, the sound of your voice feels good right now. I'm just glad that we can hear you. Sad that we can't see you. We appreciate you making the effort, nonetheless, to join us on video call. Professor Kamal, your reactions to the government's response, as we were just talking about, 4 people were arrested today on suspicion of a terror offense after the Palestine Action Group took this action at RAF Bryce Norton. Your feedback?
Well, first of all, we note that the government is only doing this for Israel, i.e. for action that's connected to that genocidal state. Israel has been campaigning since the beginning of the attack on Gaza for it to not be criticized because it's only defending itself. British governments, because we've had a conservative and a Labour one, have both supported it unequivocally. I'll say a bit about the Labour Party, but remember, Suella Braverman called even protests on the streets as hateful marches, which was so far from the truth. People were only calling for a ceasefire at the time. But then the Labour Party came. They continued to push the police to act with more force, and they began to sort of arrest people, including a Holocaust survivor. I mean, when you think about that, it's incredible that Stephen was arrested as a Holocaust survivor because he tried to lay some flowers outside the BBC. Now, the issue of Palestine action, in a way, it is what they claimed right from the beginning, that because protesting, they say, is useless. It doesn't achieve anything. Writing to your MP doesn't achieve anything. So some people were ready to take direct action. Now, whether you agree with them or not, historically this has happened from different groupings in the UK. Stop Oil was one of the last ones to do it, to block the M25 and so on. Now, there's a huge difference between saying they commit crimes, they go to a court, court could either jail them or free them, and or to label them as terrorists, which is what Yvette Cooper plans to do next week. I think the British people are fed up with the government reducing the ability for free speech, for supporting the Palestinians, particularly against a genocide. How can we continue to call Israel an ally of the United Kingdom when it is a genocidal, criminal, murderous, terrorist state? Because that's what it is. Now, for the government to say this is an ally of ours and one of the most important allies, labels us all as supporting with the world. The world looks at the UK and says, well, it's an ally, everybody. Of course we don't. So these people have chosen to take direct action. They know that there are risks, that they could end up in court, well, first of all, in a police station, then maybe to go to a court and then to be imprisoned. They do it knowingly now.
But are they terrorists, Professor Kamal?
Of course, I'm going to say no, of course not. I mean, it's really interesting. Today I've heard some discussion about what terrorism means. Now, normally, it's the use of violence to achieve your political objectives, which is actually what Israel is doing. That's absolutely what it's doing. And calling someone who throws paint on a building as which is non-violent, it will cause criminal damage. As I say, there's a way to deal with that. But to call them terrorists, to basically scupper their careers, because let's be clear, that's what they want to do. What should be happening is the government should be, it is a democratic country. listening to the people and saying we cannot continue to deal with Israel as an ally. It has been in occupation of Palestinian land for decades. It is attacking Palestinians in the West Bank. Only yesterday, 5 Palestinians were killed in a Palestinian village because of the settlers. And anyone who gets to see images of Gaza would see that this is no self-defense. This is a deliberate attack on the Palestinian identity and an attack on a peaceful people. There are people who are with Hamas and Islamic Jihad, yes, but the overwhelming majority of 2.3 million people are peace-loving people who go about their business. They try to make a living under siege. That the UK government should be with them. It shouldn't be allowing its aeroplanes to be surveilling Gaza
Sure.
and passing intelligence to Israel.
Thank you, Professor Kamal. Let me put to you what Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, said just a few days ago about the pro-Palestinian campaign group Palestine Action. She said that it will be prescribed under anti-terror laws, which we all know about. And if this is approved in Parliament, this makes membership and support of that particular group illegal. And what Yvette Cooper also said was that Palestine Action had a long history of criminal damage and had targeted financial firms, charities, universities, and government buildings. So your thoughts on this, in that, is it the case from your point of view that Yvette Cooper and the Labour government are trying to appease another audience in addition to their traditional voters? What's going on here from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the first place that Palestine Action attacked was an Israeli weapons manufacturer. That's where it all started. So you have to ask the question, why are the Israeli weapons manufacturing factories in the UK? We shouldn't have them here. They managed to close a couple of them down. But again, the government continued to collaborate on weapons sales and bought weapons from Israel. So they raised the stakes. When they attacked financial firms and so on, it was actually mostly places where these Elbit Systems, which is the main company, was a tenant. So because the government didn't say, you're right, there shouldn't be any weapons factories, Israeli weapons factories here, they went to associations, other groups that were associated with them. So if they will have to ban and call into terrorism legislation many groups which are peaceful groups. They've been campaigning for years and they have failed to get a government to listen to them, neither a Conservative nor Labour. The Labour Party knows that it has traditionally been, I know people would say it's traditionally the supporter of Israel, but those Muslims, Palestinians, thought that it would be fairer on them than not. I resigned from the Labour Party in 2023 because Starmer said Israel has the right to impose a siege on Gaza, and he's a lawyer and he knows that is absolutely not correct. In this case, people pointed to Starmer actually standing to defend people who took direct action a few years ago. Today, they've sort of come out and said, oh, well, he had to do that without prejudice because he was a lawyer. But, in life, you should have principles and stick to them. The principle here is that Israel is committing a genocide. The UK is supporting them. I know at the beginning we weren't sure, it wasn't clear whether you thought Britain was complicit. Britain is completely complicit in this war because they have supplied surveillance planes that go out from Cyprus to give intelligence to the Israelis.
Yeah,
they have continued to sell and buy weapons from Israel. So Britain is complicit, and that's where all of us are directing our anger because Palestinians continue to die. Today, another 100 people were killed just going to get some food.
Exactly. It's just unacceptable. Professor Kamal, stay on the line there because I want to get Zafar Saab. And Zafar Saab, it just seems like the goalposts always move when a particular incident or situation affects Israel or has Israel involved in some negative light or negative connotation. The goalposts just move.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say earlier on, right? That There seems to be in the Labour Party as well as the political spectrum. There's one set of reactions to everything else, but another set of reactions when it involves Israel, and these reactions are much more extreme. So a Labour Party itself may well be a workers' party, may well be looking after the welfare of the disabled, etc. They've actually sort of backed down from some changes they were going to make, which would have affected some benefits, basically. So there are people within the party who are caring of the people. But when it comes to Israel, they all have a different view. They have a very extreme different view. And there must be a driver behind it, to be honest, right? And I think the driver really is what was exposed by Al Jazeera some years ago, that a lot of these political parties are funded by Israel. A lot of these political parties have basically people who are been elected on tickets that have been handed to them by the lobbies, Israeli lobbies, etc. So in many ways, when I say they're captured by influences. They're captured by the security apparatus in this country and other countries, basically. They're captured by affiliations with likes of India and Israel and other countries. So in a lot of the cases, the MPs that have been elected, they've been elected to represent the people of that constituency, but they have another agenda, and that agenda is much more sinister, to be honest, right? And that's what's driving the changes in behavior.
Very interesting. Professor Kamal, are you familiar with the group NECAP?
Yes.
Yeah,
I have become familiar with them.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably not familiar to the extent where we listen to their music.
I know.
Nonetheless, but we've heard of them, right? In light of the situation that they are in, because they've also been censured. One of them has been, in court recently and has a court case against him, again, for speaking pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel. And it just seems like this narrative keeps repeating itself. What's your take on how NECAP are being treated at the moment?
Well, I mean, the particular case, I think there's an accusation that the Hezbollah flag was shown. I genuinely didn't see that. I don't know the details, so I don't want to comment on something I'm not sure about. But the support for Palestine is well known. That's true. What is really heartening is how many groups you see now who will have Palestine flags and so on when they go to do their gigs. Look, the people of the world get it. Many of them, most of them, I would say, see what is happening and they say that cannot be right. That you obliterate children. I think the children have really have been abused by Israel, killed, dismembered, starved, etc. And people say this isn't, no matter what happened on the 7th of October, this doesn't justify it. What you are doing to them doesn't justify it. And I think it was the starvation policy, a weapon of war that Israel has used, that made many, even MPs, as we saw here in the UK in Parliament, say, I used to support Israel, but I now can't support it because of what it's doing. This is not acceptable that people are starved. Anyone who watches the scenes of tens of thousands of Palestinians going to collect aid in such humiliating, such chaotic ways, but on top of that, they get shot and killed, and Israel says, no, we shoot in the air, we don't shoot at them. But we saw today in Haaretz, the main left, I guess, Israeli newspaper, confessions by soldiers who say, we got orders to shoot and kill the Palestinians who were coming to collect the aid.
Yeah, I mean, Haaretz is doing some pretty good reporting on that topic at the moment, yeah.
Sorry?
They're doing some pretty good, pretty candid reporting, Haaretz is, yeah.
Yeah, but my point is, this is such evil.
Yeah.
How Keir Starmer, and I've said this before when I've spoken in London during the matches. Look, Keir Starmer and before him Rishi Sunak, they have children. They hug them before they go to bed and their bodies feel warm.
Absolutely.
Palestinian mothers hug their children for the last time, bleeding and cold. How can they live with that when in fact what Israel is doing is illegal? It is abhorrent.
Last question for you, Professor Kamal, because we need to wrap up in a minute. Did you hear about what the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said a couple of days ago about Israel?
Not a couple of days ago, I'm not sure.
It's interesting because, as you know, the NATO summit was taking place and everyone was in that neck of the woods. And he made a really interesting comment on television where he said he made some confusing statements, and he effectively said, and I'm quoting here, in working on a path to a Palestinian state, living side by side in security with Israel, a Zionist Palestinian state, if you will, that recognizes the right of Israel to exist. So he's saying there should be a Zionist Palestinian state. This is Mark Carney, who's going to be the liberal savior of Canada and someone who's going to put Trump in his place.
I think one of the problems, I'm not excusing him because what he said, now you tell me what he said is completely wrong.
Strange.
This is where people say, when they're asked, like the leaders, are you a Zionist? Yes. They don't know what Zionism is.
Yeah, true.
Zionism is not about the self-determination of Jews. It's the self-determination of Jews in Palestine. That's the bit that had they gone to another place, had they been the 52nd state of America, had they gone to Uganda, and I would have stood with the Ugandans, by the way. But had they done that, then fine. But they chose to come to a land with a people, and they called it a land without a people, for a people without a land, which was the first big lie of Israel, and it has continued to lie ever since. So, if they really want peace, then he should be just pushing for the self-determination of the Palestinian people. They say they want a state on the 67 borders, or at least the leadership does. That's what the world generally thinks is the way forward, because let's face it, and there is no prospect for the Palestinian state like that.
All right.
But what's happening is that Israel is making it impossible for a Palestinian state. It will not accept one state. It wants to throw the Palestinians out.
There you go. Professor Gamal Hawash, always a pleasure to have you on this program. It's so insightful to hear your perspectives. Sorry we couldn't get the video working, but at least we heard your voice and your perspectives. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum. All right, listeners, this has been Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab. Zafar Saab, make sure you are as cool as possible because this weekend's going to be hot, and we're expecting around 33 degrees centigrade on Monday.
Wow.
And maybe even higher on Tuesday as well. So do stay safe, everyone, and keep indoors, close those blinds and curtains. Don't unnecessarily heat up your house. But until next week, take care of yourselves. Assalamu alaikum.
Enjoy the sun.